Hi, folks. Today, together with Bogdan, we are going to solve a mock interview. This is a real senior front-end interview question that one of our mentees got. And the funny thing, the interesting aspect of this question is that it combines hands-on React front-end knowledge with algorithmic and data structures knowledge, which happens to be more and more common in live coding interviews, particularly in the US and European market. Bogdan, are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Amazing. Then let's go.
Yeah, so this is what our mentee was presented with. I'm going to start reading the problem statement. And if you're doing this in a real interview, you want to read this through and ask questions as they arrive. So let's go with it. We need to develop a component that will showcase a high-level topic suggestions, okay, in a list format using the JSON schema from topic.js. So let's go ahead and look at this JSON schema. Okay, over here, perfect. So I see it's a object, it's an array that has objects, and it can basically have another subtopic property, and then we see this kind of repeated again, same properties, then again subtopics, all the way to the bottom. I see a tree-level nested object, but I think it can go even deeper. Okay, so this is our data structure. The questions you can ask here are, is this, do we need to test for properties that are missing? Should we assume that topics is an empty array? Are there any edge cases? But most likely they will tell you, yeah, just move forward with this generic structure. There's no API call to get that, which makes things simpler. Represent each topic as a clickable bubble. Okay, so this would be our topic. And for each one of those, we will need like a clickable bubble. Okay, something clickable. If there are subtopics, if we have subtopics, they should appear in a nested indented list when expanded. Okay, what does it mean when expanded? Each topic should visibly show if it's active or inactive. I guess they're referring to the enable status, if it's true or false. Now make sure you ask questions, you really clarify what they mean. When a topic is selected, and I guess that would mean a click, it should expand to display its subtopics. We can use colors to differentiate between active and inactive, and ensuring the design is clean and attractive. Okay. And I see there's an optional requirement. Display the number of subtopics in each topic card or bubble. Okay. So I guess for physics, we would have 1, 2 subtopics. For classical mechanics, we'd have 2 subtopics. Okay, so now that we have the requirements straight, the first thing you want to do is to get done the basic component structure, ignoring state and user interactions in the beginning. As a second step, I would go with the component structure. And for that, it's great if you have some sort of drawing software. I'm using TLDraw in this case.
So, Bogdan, once we understand the requirements and we make sure we clearly understand them, we are going to aim for a graphical representation of the problem, right? And especially because this is front-end, that will also allow us to understand already the component structure. Now, what advice would you give people that might struggle with the time pressure, right? Because you have to do all this in 40 minutes, have to understand the requirements, make a graphical representation of the problem, and then jump into the code. And we know a lot of junior developers and mid-level developers and even senior developers sometimes have the habit of jumping straight into the code. What would you tell them?
Jumping straight into the code, it might seem like a great idea, but it will most likely make you'll end up going back and forward. You'll write things you might delete, and it's also much harder to communicate what you're trying to achieve. You might have syntax errors, and so if you have a drawing, it will really have your back in the case of something going wrong. And the interviewer, because they know what you're going to do, they will help you out. And so you'll look like a great engineer that's just, a mistake in the syntax. However, if you don't visualize and if you don't show what you're going to do, they'll just assume you don't know what you're doing. I know this takes a lot of time. Do this for all the steps I'm doing right now, you should apply in your day-to-day work. This should be your kind of reflex muscle memory. And you should always use this drawing software daily. And so when the interview comes, it's just part of your process. It's nothing new.
So even though it feels like there's a bit more initial time investment in this, it's going to save your back when you're going to get stuck in the middle of solving the problem. And it will help you lead the interview to a successful end. Cool, bug, and then show us how would you visualize this problem?
Yeah, so I would probably tackle all the requirements and try to make them just wireframe it. So pretty much, let's use a square. I'll say, okay, we had this list of different topics, right? So we had one topic, and let's say that was biology, right? That was number one. And they mentioned there's a list of them. So we had biology, let's say we have maths. From what I saw in the JSON file, maths and chemistry. If your interviewer doesn't collaborate, it will be harder to get this done, but most of them will be okay. So you want to do this fast. I'm going slowly because for the purpose of the video. Normally I will do this in the first 5 minutes. Chemistry and let's say science, whatever. So that's what they mentioned. We have this nested list, but then they also mentioned we might need, each topic might have subtopics. So let's see how it will look like if maths would have a subtopic, which would be algebra, and then maybe, right, so let's go down, and then maybe we have here, whatever, calculus. I'm making things up right now, calculus. And they mentioned also that even calculus might have a subtopic like what can be the differential equations. Let's see, right? So that's what we're building. We're building this kind of recursive structure. For now, I would leave this as it is and go and implement this basic structure and see if I can get it done. And after that, I'll come back to it and add state and user interaction, because they mentioned that all those things can be collapsible or expanded or not. And then there was this optional requirement. So, but I would communicate this to my interviewer to get buy-in. So number one, component structure, and this can be without any interactions. For the component structures, let's keep in mind we want HTML that it's semantic. And the reason we want to use semantic HTML is because everything has to be SEO ready, search engine optimization, and accessible. As a senior developer, should be your own inner criteria for building things. So it's something you need to be proactive about. They don't need to ask, they don't need to tell you, oh, this should be accessible. It's something you should bring up and say, okay, how much accessibility do we need? I'm going to use HTML semantic just to make sure we are ready for a scenario where everything has to be super accessible. Or do we need to make it SEO ready and then discuss that with the interviewer? Just bringing that up will already make you stand out as a senior candidate.
Understood. So make whatever you're building, try to make it or explicitly mention it as HTML semantic and as SEO ready and accessible out of the box as possible, right?
Yeah, so let's go to the code now. So this is the starter code they presented us with. And of course, I would go ahead and write my talks down as pseudocode. And so we will need to render a list of titles based on the topics.json or JS file. And the other thing is we mentioned we want to use semantic HTML, and we will need to at some point have some sort of recursive for the nested subtopic. So let's make this happen with React. The first thing I will need to do is I will import my topics from topics.js. So there we go, our topics. And now let's just go over and always go for the simplest representation. I would use topics.map. So pretty much go to each topic, and we have a topic, and then we go ahead and render that. And so we mentioned we want to make this semantic. So rather than using a div, I'm going to use a list. Let's use a li. I will still want to have this probably outer div to keep the layout stable. But let me add a outer unordered list element, and we will have our topics over here. Perfect. And now we'll actually, give me a second, we will return a list element. And inside that list element, we can actually render the topic.title. That would be our first implementation, the simplest one. Let's check how this looks like. Do I have this running on another port? Oh yes, it's already running. I'm going to stop it just to make sure we start from scratch and run again. Okay, so we have like a basic representation of these 4 topics. It's not much, but for now it looks okay. Let's go back and continue. Okay, so they mentioned we also have this recursive behavior. So if we have subtopics, we should render again another list, and again all the items in the subtopics. The problem is I do not really have a stop condition. I cannot really make nested for loops because this could go on for an undefined number of levels. And this is where we can actually make a recursive component structure. And by that, what do I mean is that wherever we will find, when we find a subtopic, we will just render it as a topic. And each topic that has subtopics, we'll render them again as a topic all the way to the bottom of the nested object. So the first thing we need to do is to extract this in a specific render function of a topic. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, it seems to me like that render function will be the one that will be called recursive.
Yes. It will basically call itself on each subtopic again and again until there's no more subtopics. So
Okay, let's go.
A good understanding of recursion, it's crucial for interviewing today in the market. And I wouldn't even mind interviewing if I do not know recursion well. It would be a waste of time. Perfect. So we have our topic component. I will keep it simple. I will just return this very same JSX, and it will receive topic as a prop in this case. So that will be our topic. And so what we want to do is to return a topic. And so this would receive topic as a prop. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit, check our code. It's very simple, but ideally it gets the job done. Let's check it out. Perfect. So it's pretty much the same structure. We didn't break anything, but now let's actually also render these subtopics now that we have the structure in place. So basically here, things will change a bit. And we want to say, hey, you know what? If there are subtopics, okay, so if a topic dot subtopics dot topics dot linked, it's greater than 0, then let's render another unordered list. Is that the same? Yes, the unordered list. And inside this unordered list, we iterate over our subtopics. So we go with topic.subtopics.map, just like last time. We will get a subtopic and we will actually return a topic element. So this is the recursive nature where we see that each topic will call itself if there are any subtopics. Okay, let's check out what's our final result. Oh, there we go.
Beautiful. Nice.
So that's kind of our nested structure. This would be the first requirement. I do advise you to use, if you can, the React debugger. Yeah? So if you get stuck at any point, you can always check the props in the state. We will add state in a second of everything. And that's what seniors do. They know the tooling really well. What a mid-level junior developer would do they would use a lot of console log when they need to state or props if there's any error.
Understood. Bogdan, maybe for the developers watching us that are not so familiar with recursion or the recursive way of thinking, can you maybe re-explain the code part where you are implementing this recursive function?
Sure. So one of the easiest way to actually understand it is to look at this componentry. You see this right here. You kind of see that it's kind of repeated, right? So we have a topic, then a list, then a UL, and inside there's another topic, and a list, and a UL, and then another topic. So basically what happens is we say, hey, whenever we get a topic, which is this kind of object, right? We get the topic, then render itself. And if there's any subtopics, then use again the topic function to render that one. And so on, all the way here where there's no subtopic. Recursion is a function that creates a repetitive behavior by calling itself until there's a stop condition. And the stop condition here is that there's no more subtopics, that this is empty.
Yeah, and this is what you coded into the topic component, right?
Yes. So as you see here, this is what we call in recursion our base case, where there's no recursive behavior. And if there are subtopics, then we go into a recursive.
Oh, I mean, looks amazing.
Perfect. And now I move on with the user interactions on state. So going back to our requirements, they said that each topic is a clickable bubble. And whenever we click on it, it expand to display its subtopics. This would be a bit harder to reproduce, but always whenever we have a user interaction, think of what's the state and what is the state transition. So we know that it's going to be like expanded or not. So that will be kind of a true or false. And then we know that changes on click. So that's our state transition. Going back to our component, we know that each topic could be expanded. It could be expanded or not. So I would add some very minimal state and say it's expanded and set it's expanded and just use state, the most common React hook. We're going to start with false. So things would not be expanded. And if things are not expanded, we do not want to show the subtopics, right? So we only show this if we are expanded. Let's go and check. There we go. So now even if everything is rendered, it's kind of it's closed. We don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we would say, you know what, whenever you click on the title, let's expand that. So basically, we can have a function, constant toggle. No, let's call this onClick, so it's easier, which takes a onClick event, which we don't really need, and it will basically set it's expanded to its opposite value. So if it was true, we set it to false. If it was false, we set it to true. And we pass that down to our title. But before that, let's wrap it in AP just to make sure that it only happens this on click when we click on the actual label, not on everything. Let's save and test it out. So let's close this, click on chemistry. Now click on organic chemistry, hydrocarbons. As I mentioned, if these things don't work out, you can always use the component inspector. You can go over here and figure out the state. We see the state here, it's false. Right? We know physics, it's somehow not expanded, and now it's true, and now it's false, and now it's true. And you can do this for any component. Perfect. Now, before you finish, you always want to prove that before you move on, make sure you check the requirements again. They mentioned that there should be each topic should be visibly show its active or inactive status. Think they were referring to this property enabled. So we could actually make some sort of conditional rendering, basically say, yeah, we can add some styles and say that this P should be of a different color if it's not enabled. So let's say that the style should be, let's set the background color. So the background color should be if the topic dot enable, then it should be transparent. Let's leave it as it is. And if not, it should be pink, maybe. Is that pink? Let's try it out. Okay, so transparent wasn't a great idea. I think Alice blue should work out for this dark theme. There we go. So basically, just some conditional rendering. And finally, I think there's an extra requirement for displaying the number of subtopics in each card or bubble. Let me go back in. And basically, we have our P. So I could probably add an extra span here. I do not want to just add it as text. That wouldn't be a good idea. And then go over here and say this would be the title, no, the topic dot subtopics dot linked. And let's see how this looks like. There we go. Now we only want to show that if there are subtopics or we need some conditional rendering. Let me go back and say, yeah, now this is where JSX gets ugly. But we say basically if the topic dot subtopics dot linked is greater than 0, then do that. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, yeah, there you go. So this is now our nested component.
Amazing job, Bogdan. For the people watching us, both, I guess the code will be available for you to try it yourselves, and that's what we advise you. Bogdan, are we done with the requirements? What would you do at this point in time?
We are done with the requirements, but a senior trait is being able to review your own code. So before moving on, I would let my interviewer know that I want to read and kind of do a code review of my own code. And one of the first things you'd see right now is that we do not have a key property on this topic, which means React is not really able to, if there's any re-rendering happening, the whole list will get re-rendered because React is not able to identify which topics didn't change. So probably one of the quick fix, it's to add a key, which would be, let's say, topic.title, assuming that the title is unique, right? And the same goes for the subtopic. Whenever you have a map, we want a unique key. That's number one. And then number two, I would go into discussing accessibility. Most of this, it's accessible, but you could go deeper with area attributes. For example, whenever we enable this, we could add an area attribute that tells screen readers that this option was expanded. It's called area expanded. That would be something someone very senior would know. Or the fact that you could use React.memo to memoize this topic, so we don't need to re-render it if the properties don't change. That would be performance. So there's all these nuances, but mostly around accessibility and web performance. And you want to go into it from a point of view of, okay, let me give you my own code, because that's something senior candidates can do by themselves. They have their own standards and they give you their own code and they have their own excellent standards for the code.
Amazing. What about testing?
In terms of testing, probably we could unit test this component. We could separate it and just unit test that the expansion works on click with a click event triggered. There's no data fetching, which makes things very easy. But probably we could, with a unit test here, we already test most of the most meaningful part of this code base. As we see here, the logic is very limited. So unit testing would be more than enough for this use case. But if they do ask about testing, make sure you mention both unit test and end-to-end test, and you're ready to give examples where unit tests make more sense and examples where end-to-end test would make more sense. In this case, probably unit tests make more sense. And it's very obvious because you see they told us develop a component. So whenever we talk about function or component scope, it's probably going to be unit test.
I mean, in the end, the UI, this UI, it's a replication of the same component based on the recursive logic over the nested object. Bogdan, a few words I wanted to tell just for the audience, looking at how you went through this problem. And I think if I think about the people that we coach, the developers that we mentor on a daily basis as a senior dev, and if I think about myself a few years ago, probably the biggest challenge I would have with such a problem would be the recursive part. And not because I wouldn't have the skills probably to do it, because it's a simple recursive function. If we think about it now that it's obvious, it's very simple. It's just that I would probably think about so many things at the same time. I'll think about if I wouldn't have this methodical approach, and this is the first point that I wanted to make, it's just imitate Bogdan and stick to the process and have a process, right? And do not try to solve many problems at the same time, one problem at one time, which brings me to the second point, very important in computer science, to divide and conquer. Whenever you have different requirements, just go step by step. Do not think about everything at the same time. The third part, it's pay attention to the data. And that's what Bogdan did, because the data will, in this case, also tell you how the UI will look like. And the fourth and final point, I would say, it's know your tooling. Right, Bogdan, you were using the browser debugger, the React debugger, to make sure not only that you come across as a senior, but that you make the whole debugging process less of a guessing game and more of a very methodical way of solving problems. Bogdan, anything you'd like to add to the 4 points that I mentioned?
You made a very good summary. I would also add the fact that what I did might look very simple, but you'll have to do this under pressure. And so you want to get, there's one thing of knowing how to do it, and the other thing is knowing how to do it fast under pressure with someone looking at your code. But, and that's why we need to develop that muscle memory. So make sure you can you use drawing software on a daily basis. If you're a front-end developer, make sure you can touch type, and make sure you feel at home in the code editor. As an engineer, you should have no problem pulling up a problem like this one and try to solve it. And the second thing is it's not so easy to find examples where you combine recursion, which is a traditional algorithm and data structure interview, with a real life scenario. So it's a very valuable problem. We will add the link to the YouTube video. Make sure you do the problem. We know a lot of developers that are like, oh, that's simple, and they don't go ahead and do it. Take it, do it hands-on, try to solve it yourself, and then try to do it in under 25 minutes from scratch. Once you do that, then you can be ready to go in and do it in a real interview.
Yeah, one anecdote is we had a developer watching one of our videos here on YouTube, and they saw Bogdan solving the problem, and they're like, oh, this is easy, I can do it. They did not try to solve it themselves. Then they got it in an interview, and they failed the interview. And the moral of the story, it's watching, it's not the same as doing. And it's very important that we not only watch, but that you do it yourself. With that being said, Bogdan, thank you so much. Amazing performance. You passed the interview, and we only have around 8 stages left. So see you in the next one. And see you folks in the next one. For the people watching us that are interviewing, make sure you check the resources in the comments, specifically the free technical assessment that will help you find out your interview readiness score and your technical gaps. Thank you once again, Bogdan, and we will see you folks in the next one.